What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Photo Finish, Scot Radio's home for motorsports in general. And I don't know, I guess I should stop saying NASCAR in particular because this is the third week in a row we're going to kind of have an open wheel centric show because I'm very excited. We have Dylan Burge back on the show this week, who was on a couple of weeks ago. So our main focus is going to be the 1000th Grand Prix in China, which happened a couple weeks ago for Formula One. And we'll also talk a little bit about Indy 500 testing, specifically what's going on for Fernando Alonso with, once again, even more bad luck with the engines and electrical systems and all that technical stuff that he has no control over, and it's all his engineers messing up and everything. But before we get into all that, I do want to note a couple of short pieces of news in the NASCAR world, and first I want to extend my condolences to the Earnhardt family. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s mother and Kelly Earnhardt's mother, Brenda Jackson, passed away on Monday, so it's been a difficult week for the Earnhardt family and everybody associated with junior motorsports, and there have been a number of touching tributes that have gone out to her, so I also want to extend my condolences and give my thoughts and prayers to their family right now. And also Justin Haley, who you might remember from the Daytona race in the Xfinity Series last summer, where, in my opinion, he won the race, but NASCAR ruled that he made the winning pass below the double yellow line. He got his win taken away. Well, now he gets a shot at Super Speedway Redemption, but it's going to be in the Cup Series because he is driving for Spire Motorsports this upcoming week at Talladega in the Cup Series to make his NASCAR Cup debut. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. Of course, Spire, a pretty underfunded team, I guess we could say, even though they do have Furniture Row's charter. But it'll be interesting to see how he does, and it's great to see another young guy get an opportunity in the Cup Series, so we'll see what he can do. All right, so now let's move into Indy 500 testing, and really, it could not have been a worse start for McLaren and Fernando Alonso, who I think already coming in were probably one of, if not the biggest stories leading up to this month of May. But now that there was rain affecting much of his session, they didn't get a lot of test time in this week, and they won't for a while now. There's a possibility that Fernando Alonso, who the time he did set was the slowest of the 28 cars that actually did go on track. So if McLaren can't get up to speed and Alonso gets bumped, I mean, you thought bump day was controversial when we were talking about this on the show last week. Imagine if Fernando Alonso fails to qualify. So, Dylan, I know you're an F1 fan. You've certainly got to be familiar with all the engine failures and electrical issues and mechanical gremlins that Alonso's had to deal with in recent years.
Yeah, especially even going into last year.
Yeah, and even at the Indy 500 2 years ago,
yeah.
He looked like he was running one position behind Takuma Sato when his engine let go. Sato ended up winning the race, so he absolutely was in contention in the closing laps, and he got up front and led a bunch of laps in that race. I mean, really looked at home for somebody who'd never been on an oval before. It's eerie to see, like, everywhere he goes. Like, McLaren switched from Honda engines to Renault engines, and the cars are still breaking down every other week.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that we can't even put these incredible drivers in a vehicle that will last and that they can race and win something.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea of how pathetic it was for McLaren, the car failed on the warm-up lap. Not even on the warm-up lap, on the installation warm-up lane.
Yeah.
And it stopped before it was through turn 2 and hadn't even gotten onto the main part of the track yet. That's how little track time. You can't even call that track time, but that's how bad it was for McLaren.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, 2 years ago when Alonso ran the Indy 500, he actually had help from Andretti Autosport. It was listed as McLaren-Andretti partnership, but it was really Andretti that were putting the effort forward. And of course, they ended up winning the race. And in that span, they'd won 3 of the last 4 with Hunter Ray 14, Rossi, and 16, and then Sato that year. So you knew going in Alonso was going to be in a competitive car. Well, now the McLaren looks to be unreliable, and Carlin also with Max Chilton, they also had a major engine issue. So that's another Chevy team to keep an eye on. But can you imagine if Fernando Alonso gets bumped?
Kyle Kaiser, has he knocked Alonso out? He has! Oh! Kyle Kaiser and Hulkos Racing are in the Indy 500. Alonso's out. McLaren goes home.
That would be very bad. I don't know. I feel like that would be sad. Like, I feel so bad
Yeah.
Like you said it, I mean, no matter where he goes, he just can't seem to find anything reliable.
Yeah. Well, sports cars, I guess. Toyota's been doing pretty well. And he's got a Le Mans win now. But yeah, it's if Alonso gets bumped, I gotta assume they're gonna find a way to buy a ride for him. Of course, you remember if you were listening last week, we were talking about how these full-time IndyCar owners, and this includes Roger Penske, Chip Ganassi, Michael Andretti, and even Robin Miller, who's I think one of the best journalists in the sport of IndyCar racing. He came out and he said he was in favor of guaranteed entries, and he also claims that Bobby Rahal's in favor of it. So that's a fourth full-time owner who might be interested in instituting that in the coming years. It's going to stay the way it is this season. I think it would be a bad look for IndyCar to change it this soon before 500 qualifying begins. But I have to imagine if Fernando Alonso or if, say, Scott Dixon or Will Power, a big name like that, does get bumped this year, that's probably the end of bump day. Because I don't see how the team owners or the sport would be super comfortable with letting a big name like that miss the race, even though that, as I said last week, is ideally the beauty of Indy, is that it doesn't matter if you're Will Power and you won the race last year. You have to come back and qualify every single year. And Fernando Alonso, I know he's a two-time world champion. I know he's got all his accolades, and he's one of the greatest drivers on the planet right now. But ultimately, if McLaren don't get their act together, if the car's not fast enough, he's not going to make the race.
Yeah.
It really is such a shame. I don't know. Do you have anything else to
No, I don't even really know what to say about it. Like, it's other than it's just unfortunate. Like, wish there was something that we could do, but if they can't help him out, then there's nothing that can be done.
Yeah, and this is really, I think Michael Andretti even sent out a tweet that was quickly deleted saying that they would be involved with the McLaren partnership, and this was like within hours or minutes even of it being announced, saying, we're going to be involved. It's going to be similar to 2017. But obviously, Fernando Alonso has had a lot of tensions with Honda, given his Indy 500 partnership went up in smoke in 2017. And obviously, the 3 years that they were together in Formula One did not go very well at all. So he's with a Chevy badge car this year and a Chevy engine, and still mechanical issues are biting him. So it's really disappointing. And I have to say, I don't consider myself like an Alonso fan, but I do have massive respect for the guy, and I want to see him in a competitive car. Because the skill level that he's at, he deserves to be running up front, competing with the best of the best. And we've been robbed of opportunities to see that these last few years because his cars just have not been at that level.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for sports fans. It's even like, I don't know if you've seen this stat, but like going into like other sports basketball, the ratings this year with not having LeBron have gone down 20% with him not being in the playoffs because he just doesn't have the opportunity to show his greatness.
NBA playoff ratings down 26% or something.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for the sports world, and I think that it can be a bad thing when we don't give our most skilled athletes in the world the opportunity to do what they do best.
Yeah, well, it certainly, at least, if nothing else, gets people talking. Like, can you believe LeBron James isn't in the playoffs? Well, I almost said finals, but yeah, he's made the last 8 finals before this. So even that is almost kind of surprising. Yeah,
even the last time he's missed the playoffs, I was 5. That's insane to think about. Yeah, so he has been in the playoffs. We were in elementary school the last time he wasn't in the finals. It's crazy. He has been in the playoffs since I've been in public school, basically. Yeah, and I'm now in college.
Yep. Yeah, so same idea here, I guess. It would be a massive shame if he's not in the race. Although it is very early, so it's not even May yet officially. This was just the first test, so let's keep our fingers crossed McLaren can go back to the drawing board, see what they got wrong, and hopefully put something together for Fernando Alonso, because it would be a massive shame if he doesn't even qualify for the race this year. And of course, he's one of only 2 active drivers right now, but still has a shot at a Triple Crown. Of course, I'd love to see Juan Pablo Montoya get a shot at Le Mans this year as well. But this is Fernando Alonso's last major race that he has to win. And you would like to think McLaren would be able to give him a car capable of that, but right now it looks like they might not even give him a car capable of getting him into the race. So to be able to win the race, you first have to be in the race. And that's looking even questionable right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what comes of that. Certainly hoping for the best. And if nothing else, it's going to be a major discussion point going into the month of May, and I'm sure if all the media attention wasn't already focused on Fernando Alonso, they're certainly going to be focused on him now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the Chinese Grand Prix, and I actually came on the air and said last week that I thought this wasn't really that eventful of a race, but Dylan, we were just talking outside the studio before you came in. You kind of disagreed. Why did you enjoy this?
I feel like there was a few tight battles for a few different positions. I mean, obviously the front guys are usually very predictable. We know it's going to be, for the most part, Mercedes, Ferrari, then Red Bull for the most part. And then the rest, we really don't know. But even in those three, we've seen some competition. Obviously, Mercedes kind of blew everyone else out of the water. But with the controversy with Leclerc being slower than Vettel and them asking Leclerc to let Vettel pass him, and Leclerc still running faster by the time they made the decision, really affected his race and it affected their points, and they really can't afford to be giving up points like that with Mercedes going 1-2 the first three races.
Yeah, first time since Williams. Ironically enough, Williams, if you can believe it, young fans, there was a time where Williams were one of the best teams in the sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1992 when they opened the season with 3-1-2 finishes. That's the last time this has happened. Mercedes have gone first and second in each of the first three Grands Prix to start the year.
Did they go on to win the whole thing that year, or
did Williams?
Yeah, Williams.
I would assume so. I'm not 100% on that. I can check that quickly.
How many races are in a season?
Oh yeah,
again?
yeah. Williams 21 this year. There were 16 in 92.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but Williams won the constructors easily that year, and in fact, if they hadn't had a retirement in Spain, they probably could have had 5 1-2s to start the season that year. So yeah, it's looking like a dominant season for Mercedes, even more so than they've had the last 2 years. Could be on the cards for this season. And just to give you an idea of what their dominance looks like right now, last season after 3 races, the constructor standings looked like this. It was Mercedes on 85 points and Ferrari on 84 points. Through 3 races this season, Mercedes have a total of 130 constructors points and Ferrari only 73.
And they could be a lot closer right now if they didn't make some decisions this week.
Well, we thought they'd be ahead after testing. They were
predicted to be the team this year.
Half a second per lap advantage is what we were told and what we saw on the speed charts. And they only have 2 podiums while Mercedes have 6 between their two drivers.
I really think it just goes to show how great of a driver Lewis Hamilton is.
Yes. So
I mean, even the more underappreciated Bottas, like he's gonna be better because he's in that car, but like it still goes to show that even though that Ferrari should be beating them, they're still outperforming them. They're just giving such good performances and such great performances without any flaws that there's just nothing Ferrari can do about it.
Yeah, we have to talk about.
They just don't make mistakes.
Have to talk about Lewis a little bit more, I think, because 75 wins now.
Yeah,
it's absolutely
his 6th in China.
Yeah, it's unreal what he's doing right now. And just to give you an idea of how dominant he's been since, I think it's the German Grand Prix last year, and of course that was really the turning point for the championship, I think, with Vettel running off the track, his home track, while he was in the lead, and Lewis coming from 14th on the grid to win that race. There have been 5 drivers who have won races in that span. Kimi Räikkönen has 1 win. Max Verstappen has 1 win. No, actually no. I think it's Bottas.
Okay. Bottas.
And then I say Vettel. Räikkönen, Verstappen, Bottas, and Vettel each have 1 win. Lewis has 10.
And
he's on
that's in the past 14 races.
Yes, entirely different level to everybody else right now.
Wow, that's absolutely insane.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. There's no words you can put together to describe what we're seeing from him right now. And I know he's got a great car, but at the end of the day, Bottas was in the same car last year, didn't win a race all year. So it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it just goes to show like how amazing it is. Just like the specimen that he is, like he doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen him make a mistake. And let's say if he does,
very rare.
He does, usually it's not his control. And if it does happen, usually he recovers from it. We'll still see him finish pretty well in
Yeah,
the race.
well, yeah. I don't want to discredit Nico Rosberg at all because he's a world champion. Nobody can take that away from him, and he was a great driver. But Lewis's engine failing in Malaysia, that's not anything that's in his control. Yeah. And he lost the championship by 5 points. He was home free set to win that race, so he lost 25 points there. That was the difference.
Yeah.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think you could easily say, without that, he changed just a couple of things. He could have been a champion in 2016 as well, and going for 6 in a row himself.
Yeah. And what is the record again for most? Isn't it like 7 or 8?
7 with Schumacher, yeah. Schumacher won 5 straight from 2004. So that's the other thing. These records that he set with Ferrari that we thought were unbreakable.
Yeah, that's really crazy to think that Hamilton could challenge Schumacher for 7.
Yeah,
I mean, it's already looking good for obviously Mercedes to win this year. Like me and you are both in the same page that they're probably going to win this year.
Yeah, with how they're looking right now.
Yeah, and obviously it's probably going to be Hamilton because I mean it just comes down to between them two who wins more races.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be Hamilton. So he will probably be sitting with 6 at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think I said this last time we were on the show too. I think he could easily have 8 already.
Yeah.
If you look at 2016 to 2007, he could have won had McLaren.
His rookie year too.
Yeah.
His rookie year he didn't win. Yeah.
Yeah, losing that by 1 point to Kimi Räikkönen. And then 2010 was a pretty wide open race too. So I mean, I don't think it wasn't that close for him. But I think if you go back and change just a couple of races, he easily could have had a shot that season as well. So it's. Yeah, I don't even have words to say enough about what he's putting together right now. And I also don't really have words to describe Ferrari. I mean, what has happened to Ferrari this season?
I don't know, man. It seems like they're just falling apart. I don't know if it's the pressure getting to them or they just can't figure it out.
Yeah, well, you got Vettel cracking under pressure, and it's been 10 years since Ferrari have won any kind of championship. They won the constructors in 2008, and of course Massa came so close to winning the driver's title that year. But you've got to think the pressure's getting to Ferrari too. Of course, they changed team principals in the offseason. And there was actually an article that came out from motorsport.com last week that said that the team order had happened in China, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit as well. They said that wasn't intended to benefit Sebastian Vettel. That was just part of their race strategy, and they really had nothing more to say on it. And they said it was a shame for Charles because he was having a good run. But Mercedes were slightly faster, so that's what they were trying to undercut or whatever. I don't even know. I look at this headline and I say, like, well, how can you say that with a straight face?
Yeah, I just think that it was a very weird decision. Leclerc was obviously he was running slower for a little while, and Verstappen Verstappen had just been passed by Vettel because Vettel dropped one, and then he passed him back, and then he was going faster, obviously coming off of being behind him. So obviously from slipstream stuff, he's going to be faster. They made the decision to tell him to pass. He let him pass, and Leclerc had a really rough race from then on.
Yeah.
And then he just couldn't catch Verstappen at the end, and it drops him all the way down to 5th.
Yeah, yeah. So I have to ask. Did you go the distance? Did you stay up to watch the whole thing?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's commitment. I totally respect that. I was going to, but I started to get pretty tired, and then I saw it was a Mercedes 1-2 by the 6th or 7th lap or so, and then I said, and I was hesitant because I was like, well, I went to bed last year and it ended up being one of the best races of the season, and Ricciardo scoring a shock win. So I was like, if I go to bed, it's probably going to happen again, but. I woke up totally unsurprised to find out, another Mercedes 1-2. All right, that's not too surprising, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Renault. So Daniel Ricciardo, one of your guys, finally scoring some points.
Yeah, it's nice to see him finally put together a pretty decent race. I'm hoping to see a little bit more from him this year, though. It's nice to just see that they got through a race and put together a solid race with him retiring in the first 2.
Yeah. Renault move up with those points to 4th in the constructors now, so they're the best of the rest, as you could say, and we've been saying that for the last few seasons because the top 3 are obviously so far ahead. But not all smiles at Renault because Nico Hülkenberg lost a power unit on lap 16. So
And
more frustration and problems.
retired again
Yes.
for the third consecutive week, right? Or did he retire twice out of the 3?
I think it's 2 of 3.
Okay.
Yeah, he finished Australia, and then he was classified in Bahrain.
Okay.
Because he completed 90% of the race by then, but didn't finish that. So yeah, so Ricciardo's sitting on 2 DNFs, and so is Hülkenberg through 3 races. So
That's going to be a little bit frustrating, but I think they can put something together. I think they know where they're going, and I think they have a good idea of what they need to do.
yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Alexander Albon. He was in a massive accident in FP3. I don't know if you
Yeah, I seen
caught
it. I
that.
seen
Yeah,
it.
but the car was absolutely totaled and destroyed. So they ended up not being able to do a qualifying run, which means he had to start from the pit lane, which is a massive disadvantage. But he still was able to fight his way through the field and ended up finishing the last car to finish in the points, picking up 1 point, finishing in 10th.
Yeah, that was really impressive that he was able to move all the way up.
Yeah, so for little bit of a redemption and something positive Toro Rosso can take away from an otherwise difficult weekend. Of course, Danny Kvyat retired with collision damage on lap 41 as well. So at least Toro Rosso can walk away with that with something. It's a nice story to see Albon. And I think he got driver of the day too, of course voted by the fans. And deservedly so, for a rookie to be faced with such adversity and go into the race weekend not having even been able to qualify and be able to come away with a point is pretty successful. All right, and then bringing up the rear, again, as usual, at least of the teams that finished the race, were Williams, and the disastrous start to their year, and their season continues.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say. I mean, there's not really much to say about them.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to come up with these storylines when they're running so far back, and I think they basically come out and said like we don't really know. There's no clear solution where we're lacking. Obviously, they're lacking somewhere, but it's just
they just can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's just been a disastrous start to the season, and just George Russell and Robert Kubica, I'd have to think are 2 of the most popular drivers in the sport right now. You've got this young British driver who looks like, maybe it's Hamilton's, maybe not in the twilight of his career yet, but certainly closer to the end than the beginning. So for the British fans looking for someone younger to take up and cheer for, he might be that guy. And then Kubica, I don't know who wouldn't be rooting for Kubica right now with this incredible comeback. But if there is any light at the end of the tunnel right now, we are coming up on Baku this weekend. And that's the site of their last podium in 2017 with Lance Stroll, and was also the site of one of their best races last season. So obviously their car, I don't think, is even as good as it was last year, let alone 2 years ago when they were still 5th in the Constructors. But do you see any reason to believe that they might be able to have at least some sort of a turnaround and maybe fight for a point or two?
I feel like it's reasonable that they could fight for a point or two, seeing that they've done well over the years at this particular track. I think it's very possible. It just all depends on how many positions they're gonna pick up off of retirements and crashes and whatnot, and other people's mistakes. It just all depends on how many mistakes are made by other teams. But I think it's possible.
Yeah. I think it's fitting that NASCAR's at Talladega the same weekend Formula One's in at Baku, because given the 2016 race there wasn't that great, but given the last 2 races this year, I think Baku's kind of become F1's Talladega. It's just absolutely unpredictable. We've seen surprise finishers on the podium the last couple of years with Lance Stroll for Williams and Sergio Perez with Force India. So it has been a pretty unpredictable race the last couple of years. So who knows what we could be in store for.
Those
probably
are
another
fun.
Probably another Hamilton win now when I say that. But yeah, we'll certainly see. So that's what's coming up next week. We have a little bit of time left though. So Dylan, I want to shift gears maybe back to NASCAR a little bit with you.
Okay.
So is it true that you grew up a pretty big Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Hendrick fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of explain just maybe how that got started for you.
Well, growing up, I always liked what my dad liked, and my dad was a Jeff Gordon fan. He grew up in Florida, so he was obviously people in the South like NASCAR. Like, it's just it's what they do.
Yeah,
It's what they eat, breathe, and sleep.
Florida, especially with Daytona and everything.
Yeah, especially. And especially with the last race of the year being there too. It's just NASCAR heaven there. But I just always liked him, and I even got a few chances to see him in person. My dad used to be, back when he was sponsored by DuPont. My dad used to work in like a packaging facility or something, and like one of the shipments that they got like was messed up, and it was from DuPont, and then they ended up sending us like VIP access tickets to Watkins Glen in like 2012 or something like that, and we got to go and meet him, and it was pretty cool. But I've always liked just like who he is as a person. I like his driving style.
Yeah.
He's obviously a great driver, and he personally, in my opinion, discovered one of the greatest drivers of all time in Jimmy Johnson in NASCAR history.
Yeah, he's still listed as Jimmy's owner to this day. So is that kind of how you became a Johnson fan too?
Yeah. I haven't always liked him because more of when Gordon was around, because I wanted Gordon to win, obviously. Yeah. And it was just like Jimmy Johnson was taking the spotlight.
The first year I watched was 2007.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I used to try to defend the chase in the playoffs because I love the sport and I don't like talking bad about it. But it's gotten to the point where I think the playoffs are just so gimmicky and ridiculous. But the chase system wasn't as bad. But even then, it was kind of confusing to me how I could, after Richmond, just see Jeff Gordon's 300-point lead just totally disappear, and then Jimmy goes on this run of winning 4 races in a row in the chase that year, and that was his second of 5 consecutive championships. So I was an Earnhardt fan at the time, but I did like Jeff. And obviously Junior didn't even make the chase that year because he was on his way out of DEI and everything. But it was kind of frustrating to me to see Gordon have such a dominant season where he was running so well, and I think he had 30 top 10s in 36 races that year, which is absolutely crazy.
That's insane.
And Jimmy had a great year.
Think that someone in that position wouldn't win.
Yeah, but that's what the chase does. I mean, not that Jimmy didn't have a great year either. He won 10 races that season, but he had a particularly good final 10 races, and that's ultimately what ended up being the difference.
Yeah, that's what it came down to.
Yeah. So I guess follow up on that. Obviously, you've become a Formula One fan recently, and just even the discussions we have here on the show, I kind of take control of the NASCAR stuff. You're not following it as much these days. Did you just fall out of love with it because Gordon retired, or is the racing just not as good? Is it more appealing in Formula One? Like, what kind of sparked you to make the switch?
I don't know. I definitely lost a lot of appeal when he retired. I didn't really know in which direction to go. I mean, I was excited the following season with them putting someone in his car the next season, but then we were obviously disappointed with his performance. He didn't do so well. And of course he's not even in that car anymore.
So Chase Elliott a long time to get that.
Win, and then I believe they have someone new in that car
William
now.
Byron.
Yeah, he's in that car
Well, it's
now.
it is technically still, they just kind of switched the numbers around a little bit. So the 24 team is the old 5 team, but that Exalta paint scheme, and Exalta, I guess, is the new DuPont in a lot of ways with their rebranding, but it looks a lot like Jeff Gordon's old car, even though it's technically the old 5 car and Casey Kane's old car, but still, it's been a while since the number has been in victory lane.
Yeah. I've even been surprised with this sport. I guess I get it because they don't have as many numbers, but I've still been surprised that there haven't been certain numbers that haven't been retired and stuff. And I kind of thought for sure there was a chance that his might. But then again, even though I thought maybe not, because they brought Earnhardt's back and he died, so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's part of why. I guess I've never really explained why I'm a bit of an Austin Dillon fan. I don't even know if I'm a Dillon fan because I like the driver or just because
the number.
Yeah,
the history.
Well, and that's the thing. I wasn't around. I mean, I say I wasn't around. I was 19 months old when Dale Sr. was killed.
Yeah.
So I'm not old enough to have the memories of that 3 car on the track, running well. And of course I became an Earnhardt Jr. fan, and he's retired now. And I know Jeffrey, when you talk about the Earnhardt family, the Earnhardt name, he's trying to get something going with Gibbs and Xfinity, and that's good for him. But right now he's not really racing in the Cup Series, although he is going to race this weekend with a new Gibbs affiliated team and XCI Concepts. So we'll see how he does there. But I mean, if you're an Earnhardt fan, I kind of feel like even though Dylan hasn't really had the star power, that 3 car is there, So I know he's also like Earnhardt, he's kind of a polarizing figure in many respects. A lot of people don't like him. They don't like the move he put on Almirola to win the 500 last year. So
yeah,
but so it is an interesting topic to think about that I've seen come up here and there. But would you be in favor of the sport as a whole retiring numbers?
Yeah, I would. I feel like there would be like.
Yeah. Well, F1 has the 17 retired for Bianchi.
Yeah.
And of course he's the last driver to die on track, or die from an on-track accident. Of course, he didn't actually pass away until several months after the crash. But
yeah,
they have his number retired.
I feel that there should be. I mean, I can understand like if they didn't retire other drivers just because there's so many numbers, but like I feel like they could maybe come up with a system kind of like. I mean, obviously, in other sports, it goes by team. Like, a team will retire a number. I could see them doing that with each different team that they have, because obviously, like, there's Hendrick and there's other different teams and stuff like that. Like, they could just do it within the team, and then if, let's say, for a situation like Earnhardt, they could just retire that number throughout the entire series, throughout all the cars.
Yeah,
that's the
case. That's the case. Is with F1, the numbers retired throughout the sport. Of course, Marisha aren't even around anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess the problem with that is because there are, only 100, or I guess 110 if you do like 0, 1, 0, 2, etc. But there are so few numbers when you consider there's only, 40 cars, 40 teams that can run in a single race. Eventually, you would have to think, you are gonna run out of numbers if you go back and, let's retire Petty's 43, because that's got to be a lock, right? And Pearson's 21, and Gordon's 24, and Johnson's 48 when he retires. So
and Earnhardt's 3.
Earnhardt's 3, of course.
That's already almost 10 numbers right there. It's 6.
Yeah, you can keep going down the list.
I
don't know. Would you retire Stewart's 20 or 14? You could probably retire both, right?
Yeah.
What the Lakers did with Kobe. Yeah, because he had a lot of success with both numbers. So yeah, unless you were to go to like 3-digit numbers or something, and last time NASCAR used 3-digit numbers was in the 50s when we had all sorts of crazy numbers on the car then, but the sport was still in its infancy. So is that something that, it would look kind of weird, I guess, but
yeah, it'd be hard to get used to.
They had 3-digit numbers in cars. I remember that.
Yeah.
So that's, of course, not that cars is
relevant.
Anywhere near an accurate depiction of NASCAR, although it is based on the sport loosely, but it would be interesting to think about.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I guess those are kind of the core 5. If Petty's 43, the Wood brothers 21, and then Johnson, Gordon, and Earnhardt, I think. Because others who won that many races maybe raced with different teams and different numbers, so you can't when you think
definitively put them on one car.
Like you think of Bobby Allison, you think of 84 wins. You don't necessarily think of the number 12 or the number 22 or whatever. But when you think of Earnhardt, you think of 3. When you think of Gordon, you think of 24. So it's those guys that have those numbers
that they
defined as part of their legacy. Yeah. Well, it certainly would be something that's interesting to think about. I don't know. We'll see if I ever go down that route. I'm not betting on it.
Probably not.
Now it evens the 3s back in many respects, but
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to be it, and we'll wrap it up here for this week's edition of the Photo Finish. So next week, as I mentioned, NASCAR is at Talladega, the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, and Formula One back in Azerbaijan, where, as we've seen the last few years, anything can happen. A side note on that, Antonio Giovinazzi of Alfa Romeo is already set for a 10th-place grid penalty, so that's something that he's going to have to overcome. And I guess real quick, in the last minute or so, Dylan, do you have any thoughts on grid penalties? Do you like them? Do you not like them?
It's unfortunate. Nothing you can. I guess there's nothing really you can do about it. I guess it can just be really hard going into a weekend with the mind, with what mindset you can put yourself in. I feel like it can be hard for a lot of people to put themselves in positive mindset with knowing that they're already set back from everyone else.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dylan, thanks again for coming on. Of course, you're welcome anytime you're free.
I'll definitely come back soon.
Yeah.
Talk about the next Grand Prix that we have.
Yeah, should be a good one. All right, so for Dylan Burge, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.